Hello everyone, I hope you all are happy and healthy. Oh boy, I don't even know where to begin. That season 1 finale of Hailey's On It was wild. Like, I literally felt all the emotions while watching it.
I think I've had every emotion you could possibly think of. I've been through it all. I've been upset, I've been mad, I've just been crying, I've been everything.
We have so much to talk about because this finale, my goodness, this finale had so many shocking and quite frankly very heartbreaking moments, and I just have to talk about it, okay? I've given myself about a day to rewatch the episodes a couple of times, and I've given myself a while to try to process this finale to the best of my ability. After thinking about some of the things that happened in the finale, it makes me really hopeful, but also a little worried about the direction that season 2 will go in. Don't get me wrong, I definitely want a season 2, and Disney better renew it for a season 2 or they're gonna have to deal with me, okay?
There's no forgiveness. I know that it was done on purpose.
However, I just have like 1 or 2 suggestions for what I think season 2 should and shouldn't be about, but of course this is just my opinion and it's for the writers to make the final decision about what story they want to tell in the next season, but I just have some thoughts that I'd really like to share. But we'll get into all of that later. For right now, let's just focus on discussing the finale because again, there's just a lot to discuss. And quick disclaimer before I get into the video, this video will be filled with spoilers from the finale, lots of spoilers. So now that you've been warned about spoilers, I have to talk about this finale. So the episode starts off with Becker apparently being chased by the FBI. That's definitely not how I expected the episode to start. At first, I found this scene really funny as I just thought to myself, like, what did Becker do now to get the FBI chasing after her? Like, what did she do? Like, I just was so curious. Pretty soon, though, this scene goes from being really funny to really sweet very quickly because it turns out that all of this was just an elaborate way, a very elaborate way for Kennedy to ask Becker to the dance, and of course Becker says yes. Overall, it's a very sweet scene and a great start to the episode. And at least Becker and Kennedy get their happy ending in this episode. I won't be able to say that about some of the other characters though. But anyways, yeah, so far the episode is going pretty well, which if you aren't aware, in a previous episode, since Christine is finally over Scott, Hailey put in writing that she was going to tell Scott how she feels at the dance. So this episode is finally the dance episode, and as I said before, so far the episode is pretty good. Beta reminds Hailey about how she has to tell Scott how she feels, and he like waves the contract promise she wrote in her face, which leads to some playful banter between Beta and Hailey. And Hailey reveals that she and Scott always go to the dance as friends, which will make things a bit easier since she doesn't have to do an elaborate proposal like Becker and Kennedy just did, right? Of course, telling Scott how she really feels at the dance will be the part that's a bit more challenging. And the fact that she thinks it's going to be more challenging, I will admit that was a bit like disappointing to hear. And the reason I say that is because look, I do get having some nerves about telling him, like being a little nervous, but this is literally her best chance to tell him, and it should be relatively easy for Hailey to just come out and confess her feelings. I mean, she's almost done it before, right? But as we'll see in the episode, things get really complicated. A little too complicated if you ask me. But anyways, the episode continues with a popular girl in school, Genesis, telling everyone about a new app called Snack Match. You answer a bunch of questions about what you like and dislike, and then it labels you as a specific food, and whichever person is labeled as a food that goes well with yours, like spaghetti and meatballs for example, then you two are considered really compatible and a good match. So yeah, it's a compatibility app, simple and silly enough. In my opinion, no one should really take what an app says about you seriously, but that's what everyone else is doing in this episode, so we just have to go along with it. But even though I don't really think this compatibility app should be taken as seriously as it is by everyone, again, this episode is still really good. The jokes in this episode are a lot funnier. The jokes in this episode are a lot funnier. Like, I actually found myself laughing a lot more than I usually do when watching this show. Well, at least until the episode decided to literally break my heart into pieces, but again, that's something to talk about later. So, long story short, Hailey and Scott end up using the compatibility app, and it turns out that Hailey is lobster and Scott is cookies. So basically saying that they aren't a good match. While this is going on, there's two characters who were from like this club of people who have really great hair. This was brought up in a previous episode, and the guy, I can't remember his name, he broke up with his girlfriend Destiny. I do remember her name. Those two break up. He breaks up with Destiny because of the app saying that they aren't a good match, and she's mad about it, and rightfully so, right? So she's mad until it's revealed that she does have someone that she's a perfect match with, and you'll never guess who it is. That was sarcasm. It's Scott. And this is my first what in the world moment of this episode, because in my head I'm just screaming, no, please don't do this again. Don't let there be another love triangle. Please do not let there be another love triangle. But no, there is going to be another love triangle, sort of. Like, this love triangle between, like, I guess, you know, with Scott, you know, thinking that, like, he should go to the dance with Destiny because thinking that they're meant to be and all of that. That doesn't really last very long. But then again, the episode also throws in another love triangle after this one. So, yeah. Now, I have to interrupt myself because I know it sounds like I hate this episode right now, and I don't. It's actually a really great episode. It's one of the best episodes in the entire show. But there's just so many moments that make me want to scream and like hit my head against a pillow, like, and that's mainly because I just don't want anything to get in between Hailey and Scott. Like, again, why are we making it more complicated than it needs to be? Now, to give Hailey credit, there's a moment where someone suggests that Scott and Destiny go to the dance together, and Hailey quickly tells them that Scott is going to the dance with her. So at least she's trying to make sure that she gets the opportunity to confess to Scott at the dance. And everything continues to go well until, well, the whole school starts shipping Scott and Destiny and makes them like the official couple of the dance or something, and they tell Scott that he has to go to the dance with her since the school voted for them to go together. So then Scott goes and asks Hailey if he can go to the dance with Destiny, and there's just so many problems that I have with this scene. First of all, why is Scott asking Hailey this when she's in the middle of playing dodgeball? Like, this is clearly not a good time. Even Hailey tries to tell him that, but of course he doesn't understand because he's oblivious and he thinks it's okay to have such an important conversation while Hailey is trying to not get attacked by people throwing dodgeballs at her. Let me try to stay calm, y'all. Let me just try to stay calm.
I'm going to count to 10, text my therapist, and try and have a great day.
Anyways, Scott asks her if he can go to the dance with Destiny because basically he says something on the lines of, well, according to a phone app and a bunch of teenagers, Destiny might be my, well, destiny. Remember how I said in my review that Scott isn't as oblivious as like he used to be in the beginning of the show? Well, they are making him like so oblivious in this episode, and I know it's for plot reasons, but how does he not see what's wrong with that sentence? You're going to let a phone app and a bunch of other teenagers tell you who you should be with?
I mean, that's absolutely stupid. I mean, who does that?
Okay, to be fair, he's a teenager, and teenagers, and even young adults, to be honest, make decisions based off of silly things. So I guess I shouldn't be super angry about that because it does kind of make sense. And then that's when Hailey tells him that, well, hey, why would I mind? I have plenty of other options. But see, now Hailey is the one making a mistake because, like, Why doesn't she just tell Scott that she likes him, and if he still wants to be with Destiny and listen to that app after his best friend confesses to him, then that's his problem and she can start moving on from Scott or whatever. And I know she's worried about ruining their friendship, but come on, Hailey. This was the moment to just tell him that you like him. Tell him before he goes to the dance with Destiny. Tell him you're not okay with that. You're best friends, and best friends are supposed to trust each other and be honest with each other. Even Strawberry Shortcake was able to teach me this life lesson. For goodness sakes, just talk things out with Scott already.
The trick is remembering your friendship gets more strong when you talk it out. Let's talk it out.
I feel like I'm starting to sound like Shafrillis when he starts like losing his mind over the Megamind sequel. I promise that this episode is not as bad as that movie. This episode is really good. It's got me invested in the story. I'm just a little too invested into the story, and I think that's why I'm just like so passionate about this whole thing. Anyways, going back to what's going on in the episode, when Hailey tells Scott that she has more options to go to the dance, Scott brings up Sanjay, who is the fake crush that Hailey made up a long time ago, and keep that in mind. Keep in mind that Sanjay is obviously not a real person, because that will be important to remember later.
Too bad you can't ask that guy Sanjay. Who?
Another thing I want to mention is that Hailey only mentioned him like one time, but yet Scott can remember literally everything she made up about him, causing Hailey to have to make up answers to all of Scott's questions about Sanjay. And this is another moment where I'm just like left being very confused, because like, so wait, Scott's too oblivious to notice that his best friend clearly doesn't want him to go to the dance with Destiny, but yet he can remember everything she's ever said about a fictional guy that she made up since the first half of season 1. Why did they do this to me? Like, why is Scott so conveniently able to remember everything about Sanjay? But anyways, the main thing that's kind of frustrating about this scene is that Hailey is so obviously upset, but Scott can't tell, and he goes to the dance with Destiny, but not before telling Hailey this.
Okay, cool. I thought you might be mad or something.
So Scott just made a big mistake by going to the dance with Destiny, and he does eventually realize that when finally everyone is at the dance and Scott and Destiny are also at the dance together, but it becomes so obvious that Destiny is only with him to make her ex-boyfriend jealous. When Scott realizes this, he's upset, and that's when Christine talks to him. Now, before I mention the main topic of their conversation, I have to mention that this episode does an amazing job with portraying Christine and Scott's friendship. Like, they have more genuine moments in this episode than they did in their whole relationship, and that took me by surprise. Anyways, as Scott and Christine continue to have their conversation, Christine realizes that Scott took the quiz in the compatibility app in like the wrong way or something, and that's why he didn't have any chemistry with Destiny. So she encourages him to take the quiz again, but the right way this time, and it turns out that instead of being cookies, he's really butter, and his perfect match is lobster. And when he remembers that, well, Hailey is lobster, he starts reminiscing about all the moments he had with Hailey in the most beautiful flashback ever, and then that's when he says what we've all been waiting for.
I think I like Hailey.
He finally said it. He finally realized the moment that he finally realized that he liked Hailey. Like, it's such a beautiful moment. He finally realizes that he likes Hailey, and it's just so beautiful. And after Christine confirms that Sanjay is just a made-up guy, he decides to go and tell Hailey that he likes her, and oh my goodness, it's another beautiful moment. Like, he is just so happy. He literally shouts outside that he likes Hailey, and then while running to her house, he gets her flowers, and it's one of the best scenes in the episode for sure. Like, this was the moment we've all been waiting for, and it's so beautiful. But as I mentioned earlier, the happy moments do not last. This episode is just determined to break your heart. When Scott gets to Hailey's house and he's about to confess, it turns out, and you'll never believe it, Sanjay is actually a real person.
What?
I did not see that coming at all. Like, again, this was such a what in the world moment, because Throughout the whole series, even in this episode, it's established that Sanjay is clearly not real. Hailey only made him up so Scott wouldn't find out that she likes him. So how in the world did he just suddenly exist? I have no clue. Now, some people speculate that he might be a robot in disguise or something. I don't know. What matters for now is that the guy is real, and since Scott finds out that she's going to dance with him, he doesn't confess his feelings. And the following scene is just so heartbreaking. Scott goes back to the dance, and he's extremely sad. He goes to sit down, and Christine goes to ask him how things went, but then she sees for herself how things went as Hailey and Sanjay walk in together, and Christine is surprised that he's real, just like all of us, then goes to try and comfort Scott. That's when Scott admits to her that he feels embarrassed, and it's apparently the first time he's ever felt embarrassment before. That's actually really interesting. Perhaps him feeling embarrassed for the first time could lead to some character development where Scott realizes that he needs to think just a little bit more about the decisions he makes before making them. But anyways, he tells Christine to not tell anyone about his crush on Hailey, and she agrees to keep it a secret. She tries to cheer him up by saying Sanjay can't be that cool, but Sanjay proves her wrong as he is quite an amazing dancer. And seeing how cool he is only makes Scott more upset, and it's just it's so heartbreaking. And what's interesting is that Scott seems more heartbroken over Hailey than Hailey felt heartbroken about Scott. Now, don't get me wrong, Hailey showed moments of being heartbroken because she couldn't be with Scott, but then she just would move on with her life. We never really got like a really long, drawn out scene of Hailey just being sad because she thinks Scott will never like her in a romantic way. Whereas the scenes of Scott being devastated that he recognizes feelings for Hailey too late just feel extra heartbreaking for some reason. But then again, that's probably because it's the season finale and the writers are purposefully trying to make you feel even more emotional than you would feel like from a typical Hailey's on It episode. And the writers definitely did a great job at making me feel a lot of emotions while watching this episode. They really did. But if the heartbreaking moments with Scott aren't enough to leave you speechless, then this scene sure will. So while Hailey is admiring Sanjay's dance moves, Beta interrupts her and tells her that even though Sanjay is objectively better than Scott in every way, man, Beta will take any opportunity to make fun of Scott. Anyways, he continues by telling Hailey that she has to think of the list, that the fate of the world depends on her telling Scott how she feels, and reminding her again that she'd promised to tell him tonight. That's when we probably get the most shocking and gut-punching moment of the whole episode. Hailey tells Beta that she can't do it anymore, she can't keep chasing someone who will never like her back, and tells Beta that you and the list aren't in control of my life, but I am. Then she rips her contract promise to tell Scott how she feels and throws it in the trash.
What? That is shocking.
And first of all, Hailey tearing up her contract promise is another heartbreaking moment. Also, when Hailey says that she can't keep chasing someone who doesn't like her back, but Hailey, Scott does like you back now, which just makes this even more heartbreaking. But what's really shocking is her statement about how the list doesn't control her life. Does that mean Hailey is done with completing list items? Maybe she's just referring to not wanting to do the kissing Scott list item anymore, but even then, according to what's been set up in the show, if she doesn't do any list item, including that one, then the world will end. Which, speaking of this, I've seen a few comments of people saying that if Hailey has decided to not complete the list, then that makes Hailey very selfish and unlikable because she's willing to let the world burn, all because she doesn't want to tell her best friend about her feelings for him. Now, I think statements like this are going a bit too far. Yes, Hailey does need to complete the list, and she probably will change her mind and decide to complete the list again in season 2. But as I said in my review of the show, Hailey nor Scott should feel pressured to kiss each other if they aren't comfortable with that. Clearly, Hailey is hurt by what she thinks is a one-sided crush on Scott, and she's ready to move on. And she has every right to decide that she wants to move on, that she doesn't want to do that kissing list item anymore. And I also think it's a little too early to be calling Hailey selfish based on a few minutes in one episode. If in season 2 she continues to refuse to complete the list, then that would be an issue because she does need to complete the list, and I'm sure that eventually she'll decide to complete everything on her list again, including the kissing thing. But the kissing list item should wait until Scott and Hailey actually realize that they both liked each other and they're ready to be together. And I'm sure the writers want to wait until the right time in Hailey and Scott's relationship before they get to that particular list item. And that's okay. That doesn't make Hailey this horrible person because she doesn't want to kiss a guy. And you can clearly understand where Hailey is coming from. She's been chasing Scott all season, and no matter what she does, there seems to be something always standing in the way of them ever being together. And I get how that must be frustrating and painful. And you can hear the emotion in Hailey's voice when she says that, which is another thing that makes this scene amazing. It's an emotional scene for sure that leaves you speechless, but it's because of that this scene is amazing, and I think it's the moment that stands out the most in the entire episode. And again, I don't think that people should be like blaming Hailey for everything. Like, when it comes to Hailey and Scott's relationship, I mean, both Hailey and Scott have made mistakes, so you know, it's kind of like the fact that they're not together, or the fact that they don't know that they like each other. Again, both of them kind of made some mistakes along the way that caused that to happen. So, you know, it's not really anyone's fault. It's just, it's not the right time, even though I really feel like it should have been the right time in this episode for Hailey and Scott to be together, but, you know, whatever. Anyways, another scene I want to talk about is when Sanjay asks out Hailey, and Hailey, after a little hesitation, says yes. Later on, she tells Scott that she and Sanjay are going out, and Scott seriously seems so heartbroken, and for a moment it seems like he's going to tell Hailey how he feels again, but then stops himself and says that he is happy for her and Sanjay, and oh my goodness, this episode just keeps breaking my heart. There's also a small moment when Hailey leaves her purse with Scott while she goes to take photos with Sanjay, and the compatibility app on both of their phones says that a match has been detected, and then Scott smiles a little, I guess because it's maybe a confirmation that maybe they are eventually going to be together at some point. And I'm going to cry, like seriously. However, Scott then gets sad again and he deletes the perfect match thing from their phones, and oh my goodness, this is too heartbreaking. Please make it stop. I'll put together the pieces of my broken heart later because it's almost time to talk about what happens after this. But before I do that, there's one thing I forgot to mention that is important. Chaos Bot escapes into the school earlier in the episode and Beta goes to destroy it, but not before AC sees the Chaos Bot, and the Chaos Bot almost seems like it recognizes AC, so that might confirm the theory that maybe AC is the one who creates the bots in the future. But now we get to the very end of the episode, and after Scott deletes the perfect match thing from the app, a big time glitch suddenly appears where there's this giant chaos bot destroying everything before it disappears, and Scott is frightened, wondering what's going on. That's when Beta tells him that in order for that not to happen again, Hailey has to stop avoiding things on her list, and Beta decides that, despite it going against his programming, to tell Scott that there's one list item she hasn't told him about. Beta's screen is calculating, then we see Scott gasp, and it appears that he sees what list item Beta is referring to. Now, we don't see the list item that actually appears on the screen, nor does Beta actually say what it is, but we assume that Scott knows about the kissing list item thing, but we won't know for sure until season 2, because after Scott gasped in reaction to whatever is on Beta's screen, the episode just ends. It ends on a cliffhanger when we don't even know if we're getting a season 2. This is like the one thing that I said I didn't want to happen in this episode.
Girl, stop playing with us right now.
But regardless of what I wanted, it happened. The episode ended on a cliffhanger, and now we just have to wait until season 2 to find out exactly what the cliffhanger means. So my overall thoughts on this episode, again, despite my sometimes more critical remarks about certain things that happened in this episode, it was actually a really good episode. Aside from it ending on a cliffhanger, this finale is a great season finale. It has the jaw-dropping moments, it sets the tone for what will probably happen in the next season. You can't help but feel invested in the story. You know, you also can't help but feel emotional as you watch it, and it does make some progress with the Hailey and Scott storyline, with Scott realizing he likes Hailey, but you know, although adding yet another love triangle is not really a great decision. But overall, it's a great season finale. Aside from the cliffhanger, I think this episode has some of the most compelling and interesting moments for the characters and the story, and I highly recommend watching it if you haven't seen it already. So I really hope that the show gets a season 2. But for now, I suppose I'll go and watch the finale another 10 times and then rewatch some of my other favorite episodes as well. Like I said, the season finale was really great. It was truly such an epic episode. It broke my heart at times, but ultimately I really enjoyed it. And I really hope that the show gets a chance to continue its story in season 2. Anyways, I guess that's all I have to say. What did you think of the finale? Let me know, and thank you so much for watching, and please remember to love yourself and be kind to everyone, and especially don't forget to educate yourself on what's going on in the world. There is a lot of unnecessary suffering in the world right now, especially in Palestine, Congo, and Sudan, and I urge you to please inform yourself of what's happening and do whatever you can to help the people who need our help the most. Thank you for watching, and have a great day. Bye!